So a bit of breaking news coming out in the last couple of minutes or so, and it's regarding WWE Superstar Andrade, because it's being exclusively reported by Wrestling Inc. that Andrade has requested his WWE release. Now I must stress that we don't know as of yet if it's been granted or not, so as of right now, at the time of recording, Andrade, it seems like, is still a WWE Superstar, but he has requested a release from his WWE contract. Now Wrestling Inc. has exclusively reported that Andrade asked for his release while at the WWE Monday Night Raw tapings this past Monday night. As I mentioned, there's no word yet on if the release will be granted. If we hear anything, of course, we'll do a video about it. We'll keep you updated. Andrade is still listed as a member of the WWE Raw roster as of recording right now. As I mentioned, we don't know if he's gone from the company. All that we know is that he has requested his WWE release. Now, it was noted earlier today, and I was toying about doing a video about it. Ultimately, we didn't, because I felt that we needed to hear something a bit more, and it might actually expand throughout the day. Turns out we were right here. Andrade was trending on social media after dropping the WWE from his Twitter handle. It includes an interesting comment he made on Instagram this morning as well. It's made some comments about that. Now, the former NXT champion and former United States champion last appeared on Raw at the time of the 2020 WWE draft in October. He then took some time off to undergo a minor procedure after the draft and never actually was officially drafted to Raw or SmackDown. He was scheduled to be out of action for around a month, but he's not been seen since. Now, around the time of Elimination Chamber last month as well, Andrade was doing some tweets and some posts of him holding the United States Championship, of him holding the NXT Championship as well. So it's one of these bits of news, to be honest, when it comes to this, where, look, as I mentioned, he hasn't officially been released yet, so we can't confirm about whether he is gone or he is staying with the company or not. Just because people request their release doesn't necessarily mean they always get let go, but it usually is the beginning of the end when it comes to their WWE career. Lots of talents have requested their WWE releases, and eventually, after it being rejected several times, they get let go in the end, or they go in the end. You know, Rusev, Mike Bennett, Brody Lee as well as another name, that they all request their release, they get denied, but then eventually WWE realizes they can't keep an unhappy talent there, and eventually they go. When it comes about this news, look, it's just really sad. It's really sad because I think of someone, first of all, the talent that Andrade has is one thing, and the fact that WWE can't find anything for Andrade, I just really struggle to believe stuff like that. When I see stories like this of, you know, WWE just don't have anything for you right now, and you sort of look at you tilt your head and you go, really? You don't have anything for someone with the quality and the in-ring prowess of someone like Andrade? You don't have anything for him? This is a company that produces hours and hours of content weekly. You've got a 3-hour show on a Monday. You've got a 2-hour show on a Friday. You've got a 2-hour show on a Wednesday. You've got a 205 Live show on a Wednesday. You've got NXT UK. I'm not saying Andrade is going to go compete for the NXT UK Championship, but you know what I mean. I mean, this is a company that produces so much content, and you can't find anything for someone with the caliber of Andrade. Seriously? I always just struggle to believe that. I think it's... it baffles me. It absolutely baffles me that they can't find something for Andrade. You know, even if it was sending someone, Andrade, like back to NXT, why would that be the worst thing in the world? NXT would be happy to have him. They'd be happy to have him, because if Andrade, when he eventually does leave, he'll probably go to AEW, and he'll be very successful there, and he'll be a big star there. Obviously, he can go back to Mexico as well, and he'd do very well in AAA. He's another talent that would do very well in New Japan as well. This is a guy, and again, it speaks to the talent that he has, that anywhere he goes, whether it is AEW, whether it is Impact Wrestling, whether it's Ring of Honor, whether it's New Japan Pro Wrestling, whether it's AAA, wherever he goes, he'll be a massive success. He'll be a massive success. And I always struggle with news stories like this to see what you can't find anything for someone like that. It really baffles me. It baffles me. I mean, Andrade, his story in WWE is so interesting as well, isn't it? Because when Andrade first came into NXT, he had the Andrade Cien Almas, and I prefer that name again. Don't like dropping the last names, whatever. But he came into NXT and he had the gimmick of the suspenders and the fedora hat and all that, and it didn't work. It didn't work. And this was a guy that was coming in from Mexico, had a huge reputation in Mexico, and he'd taken the mask off, and everyone had high expectations for him, and it wasn't really working out. and he was getting very frustrated. And I think even then he was requesting or thinking about anyway, possibly quitting NXT and going back to Mexico, because he was like, oh, just another Mexican star that comes into WWE and they don't know how to book me, or they can't find the right thing, or they give me this goofy gimmick. It's ridiculous. So what do? They pair him up with Zelina Vega, and then just it felt like overnight magic. It was just magic overnight. And Andrade as the NXT champion, some of the matches he had, whether it was, against the likes of a Drew McIntyre or Johnny Gargano, that match against Johnny Gargano at the Royal Rumble weekend, 2018, at NXT TakeOver, where was that, Philadelphia? I mean, it's one of the best TakeOver matches of all time, and the matches he had against Aleister Black, who's also just stuck in catering right now because WWE doesn't like him anymore. It's just, it's ludicrous, and eventually, again, I at this point, when someone requests their release, they can appear on TV after the fact. That's happened before, but the writing then starts to become on the wall. It really does, and you just look at it and you go, another very, very, very talented pro wrestler that has a huge upside, that was a huge success in NXT, that has just been horribly, horribly mismanaged over the course of the last sort of year or so. And it just goes to show that, and I always say this, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but I think it's worth stating that people can say what they want about NXT and all that kind of stuff, and the success of NXT and the Performance Center and what a great system WWE has, or our developmental system is better than it ever used to be, and all that kind of stuff. But that's not true. It is such a massive myth that since the implementation of the Performance Center in 2013 and NXT being rebranded with Triple H in 2012, they first started doing those different NXT shows from Full Sail, is that they've managed to create all of these big stars, and it's been such a benefit for WWE, because the answer is it hasn't. It hasn't. That system does not work. That system does not work, and it hasn't ever worked. People can say, well, what about Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose and all of these great names that have come to the main roster from NXT? They were signed to FCW at the time. NXT, in terms of the female stars, I will give you that. The female revolution, the women's evolution, some of the stars they've helped create definitely come from the Performance Center and NXT, whether it's Sasha Banks or Becky Lynch or Bayley. I think Charlotte Flair was in FCW as well, but those names, I'll give you that. I will give you that one. When it comes to male talent, the NXT system does not work. It doesn't work, and I don't know about you, but I'm getting so tired. I am so tired as a fan of pro wrestling and a fan of WWE. I used to get so excited when I saw talents in NXT thrive, like Andrade, like Aleister Black, like Keith Lee, like Riddle, like all of these names, like Bobby Roode or Shinsuke Nakamura. All of these names, I used to get so excited seeing them in NXT because I saw, as a fan, you love their work, you love their entrance, you love their character, and you thought, this is on a small stage, this is on a small scale. Imagine when they get to the main roster. They're going to do so many great things in front of those big crowds, and it's going to make the Raw and SmackDown product so easy to watch because they've got so many great characters. It's going to be so exciting. And then one by one, these people get caught up and they just get butchered. Their character, everything that makes them special, their moveset, their character, whether they're a heel or a babyface, their promos, their matches, their finishing moves, their chants, their cheers, everything. Even the way that they walk, they talk, what they wear, their entrance music, everything gets changed. And everything gets ruined to the point that they're unrecognizable anymore. They're not the character that got them so much success in NXT. They're not the character that got over in NXT. They're someone completely different. And then the crowd doesn't know how to react to them anymore. The crowd doesn't react to them anymore because that's not the character they liked. They liked the character in NXT. And then the geniuses, the brain trust backstage in WWE, the Vince McMahons, the Bruce Pritchards, the writing team, they wonder, why isn't the crowd cheering for this guy? This guy can't get over. Well, maybe it's because you've stripped everything away from him. You've stripped their entire identity away from him, what made him so popular, and then you go, he has something missing. The thing that they're missing is the thing you've taken away. Look at Keith Lee. The Keith Lee that's on the main roster right now, I know he's out with an injury, but the Keith Lee that's on the main roster, that wasn't the Keith Lee in NXT. The Keith Lee in NXT was the first ever person to hold the NXT North American Championship at the same time. As soon as he gets to the main roster, change the music, which I know was a difficult situation, but change the gear that he wears, and he's not allowed to do all the high-flying moves. He's got to wrestle like a big man now, and he's got to cut different promos. He's not even Keith Lee anymore. He gets changed, and it's the same with Andrade. Andrade, as the NXT champion, you watched his matches and you watched the presentation. he had with Zelina Vega, and he thought, man, when this guy gets to the main roster, this is the new Rey Mysterio. For years, we've been hearing all of these reports and news stories about WWE. They're looking for the next Latino babyface. They want to replace Rey Mysterio. How many times have they tried to replace Rey Mysterio, by the way? If it wasn't Alberto Del Rio, then it was Sin Cara, then it was Andrade. They've botched that attempt at getting the next big Latino Hispanic male babyface to get over in WWE, that they had to bring Rey Mysterio back, and they've still got Rey Mysterio back as that big Latino Hispanic babyface. Humberto Carrillo was another person they tried to get over and they failed. And you looked at Andrade and you thought, well, this guy, he's the natural fit. He's the next guy. He has to be. He's the NXT champion. He's having great matches. Yes, his promos maybe aren't the best, but that's why Zelina Vega's there, because she can cut a great promo. And her getting involved in ringside and getting physically involved in the matches, it was great. The whole package worked. And you looked at that and you thought, wow, there's no way they could mess that up, right, on the main roster, and they did. And I know people were going to say, well, he was the United States champion, he was the United States champion for a while, but they did nothing with him. They did nothing with him. On SmackDown, when he first, because he was initially put to SmackDown, wasn't he? He really didn't do that much. He wrestled Rey Mysterio in great matches, but in terms of storyline, did nothing. And he went to Raw, and he was still with Zelina Vega. They got Angel Garza in there, and they wrestled maybe the Street Profits 10 million times last year. I mean, it was ridiculous. And once again, Andrade is the latest name that comes from NXT. It gets everything stripped away from them, and then they go, oh, they just don't make any new stars in NXT, or they don't do this, or they don't do that. And he says, well, you take everything away from them. And now I see stars in NXT every single week, Karrion Kross. I see people like that, and I go, oh, I really hope they don't get called up to the main roster. Because once they do, they're done for. They're done for, because suddenly everything changes again. They start from scratch. They start from scratch and everything changes from them. Whether it's their music, their ring gear, their promos. If they were a heel in NXT, suddenly they're a babyface on the main roster like Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode was a heel champion, a great heel champion. Yes, he got cheered because of his entrance, but he was a great heel. What do? They call him out to the main roster, and you think, right, finally, Bobby Roode, former TNA World Heavyweight Champion as well, finally he's going to get his big shot in WWE. They switch him babyface when he was a heel the entirety of his run in NXT. From the start, he's already on the back foot, and that's what they do. And again, it goes back to my point. This NXT system does not work. From the male side of things, it does not work. They cannot create any new original stars in NXT. From the male side of things, they can't. They can't, because any success they have in NXT, and the whole point of NXT is developmental. You're meant to develop. You're meant to adjust to the WWE style, and also from the NXT TV show as well, you're meant to create this character, this identity, this promo style, this way of working, this character. And you're meant to evolve it to the point that there's the transition from NXT to the main roster is so easy. It's so easy that it's so smooth and seamless that you've already got your character ready and you can just drop them into Raw or you can just drop them into SmackDown, no problem. Because they've already worked on the character. They've spent years working on it, honing it in front of big crowds and audiences for NXT every single week. And it doesn't work like that, because you can work on your character for years in NXT, and then the moment you're on Raw or SmackDown, you're asked to do something else. So what were those 2 years for? For nothing. What, just for paying dues sake? If that's the case, then NXT is redundant. It's completely redundant. It's no different from OVW or FCW or wrestling in Memphis like they had for a while. None of it's any different. And it goes to show this NXT system, it doesn't work, because you've got yet another former NXT champion, a former NXT star like Andrade, who gets to the main roster and suddenly, oh, we didn't have anything for you. Actually, we think you're missing something. You can't translate to a bigger audience. Oh, come on. Do me a favor. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And you've got guys like Andrade sitting on the sidelines right now. You've got guys like Aleister Black sitting on the sidelines right now. You had people like Brody Lee sitting on the sidelines for ages as well. And just, we've got nothing for you. Okay. Not that we don't have anything for you. It's that Vince McMahon or maybe Bruce Pritchard or a senior WWE official doesn't like that person, and then gets to the point where the creative team, they're not going to pitch ideas for someone that someone doesn't like, because they'll just get shot down. I'm sure that creative team could come up with a ton of ideas for an Aleister Black or an Andrade or any of these names that they could have. They absolutely could have. But do you think if someone doesn't like them or they feel like there's something missing, do you think they're going to approve those ideas? No, they're going to look at that right and go, why are you bringing up ideas for someone we don't want to use or we have nothing for at the moment? That's how it works. It's just ludicrous. It's ludicrous. And as I mentioned, at the time of recording right now, Andrade hasn't been officially released or anything like that. But the pattern that we've seen over the course of the last few years is that this is the beginning of the end. whether it is FTR, whether it is Brody Lee, whether it was Mike Bennett, whether it's Rusev, whether it was any of these names, they request the release, it gets denied because they know that they'll go to a competitor, but eventually, they can't keep them there forever. And eventually they will go. They will go. So it's a shame. I know obviously Andrade he's engaged to Charlotte Flair as well, and it would make you wonder what that situation would be like. I think when it comes to stuff like this, it's people are professionals. I mean, AJ Lee still worked with WWE for a period of time after CM Punk walked out. So, and after that, CM Punk was officially fired during the wedding day that she had to her husband, she still worked with WWE because she was contracted to do so. So. WWE is in love with Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair will still have a WrestleMania Championship match. None of that will change because of the Andrade situation. WWE would do their very best not to PO Charlotte Flair, because if they lost Charlotte Flair to a competitor, which they won't, but if they did, they would be very concerned and worried about that. So I don't think it's going to have any effect on Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair's still going to have a WrestleMania spot. She's still going to probably win the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania. I think it's interesting. There were some reports that maybe she had asked to maybe be involved with Andrade on screen, and they turned that down. I don't know how that necessarily will work out, but certainly is interesting but sad news when it comes to Andrade. Just another talent that has major success in NXT, but for whatever reason, once you get to the main roster, doesn't count for nothing. And as I mentioned, NXT doesn't work. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Andrade requesting his release from WWE? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.